go.
The end. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, and it's the end for the Golden State Warriors. Now, let's not cry for them, Argentina. They've had a dynasty. They've had a run. Let's not forget their world championships. 2015, 17, 18, the amazing one in 22. But now they are out of the playoffs, having been squished by the Kings last night. Crushed them. They were only down 4. I thought the Warriors would win. We'll get to that later. We're going to get to the WNBA today. We're going to talk about Caitlin Clark because that's my new thought that she needs to be in every show, an absolute market mover. But starting with the Warriors and the most difficult thing for any executive or any team to do. What now for this team? Acknowledging the end. It's sort of like the Astros saying to themselves, all of our pitching's hurt. We're not winning games. Are we now going to be sellers? Are we going to let Alex Bregman go? Do we have the money to keep paying the tax? Do you know the Golden State Warriors basically pay 1-to-1 in luxury tax? In order to keep a team together for as long as they've kept the Warriors together, their payroll is something like $210 million, and their tax on that payroll is like $170 million. It's absolutely absurd. Now, the Chase Center in San Francisco is a hugely profitable game day venue. They rival Madison Square Garden. In some cases, they beat Madison Square Garden in terms of revenue per person. Where they're having a problem is in quality of play per player. And they've got to decide on 2 major players, one of whom has been a part of their team throughout, and that's Klay Thompson. I was watching the game last night. I was watching Klay Thompson go 0 for 10. 0 for 6 from the three-point line. Off night, no problem. It happens. Bad timing in an elimination game. The problem, the 9-10 game in the SoFi play-in tournament, is that if you lose, you're done. It's a game 7. If you lose 7-8, with the Lakers game against the Pelicans, which we'll talk about, you still get another shot. 9-10, no more shots. So I'm watching Klay Thompson, and I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be the end of his career with the Warriors? He's a free agent. There have been no substantive talks about a new contract. There will be a definite disagreement about his worth. When you pay Klay Thompson and you continue to be over the tax, then whatever you pay him, figure you're paying 1.8x. There is no scenario that Klay Thompson is worth that amount of money. He's not even worth the amount of money he wants just for him for getting the tax. How do you say goodbye? Steph Curry after the game said, I can never see myself not with those 2 guys. Who do you think he was talking about? Klay Thompson was one of them. Hint. Chris Paul wasn't the other. Hint, hint. I understand this league changes and there's so many things that go into it. I know they want to win and I want to win. That's all I'm worried about. Well, that's 2 different things, Steph. If you want to win, you know very well. You looked at your team last night. You looked at your team over the course of this season. You looked at the distraction that is Draymond Green. You looked at the declining ability of Klay Thompson. You looked at your age and the realistic nature that you cannot control every game for 82 large. You look at the young players who either are going to make it or not once given the ball at crunch time. You see that you have not made the playoffs. What is it, Coca? 2 out of 3 years? 3 out of 4 years? You start thinking that maybe Myers knew what he was doing. Myers, who left the Warriors, remember when he went to ESPN, the architect of the Warriors was Steve Kerr, left the Warriors, and now I think he's with the Commanders. Reminds me of when Theo left the Cubs, when you all said, hey, sign Rizzo, sign Baez, sign Chris Bryant. Who's the smart one now? Fans get so angry when you do not bring back your own players, even when management knows they stink. They're done. Why can't we all just leave well enough alone? The Warriors have had a 9-year run that rivals any other than the Celtics in the Bill Russell time. It's close to the Bulls run when they won 6 championships in 8 years. That's the type of run we're talking about. The success of the Spurs with Popo, Duncan, Robinson. Do you go up to Klay Thompson and just tell him the truth? Wouldn't that be refreshing if that's what they did? We're going to move on, Klay. We're going to retire your number. We're going to honor you like you can't believe, but we are not bringing you back. Steph Curry and Draymond Green still have 2 years left. Remember when they matched their deals? Steve Kerr signed an extension. Steph Curry, Draymond, they all expire at the same time. So now what you're going to say is, David, here's what they're going to do. They're going to bring Klay Thompson back on a 2-year deal. And then everyone will leave at the same time because they're going to run it back 2 more years. Spoiler alert, if the Golden State Warriors sign Klay Thompson and bring him back for 2 more years, they're doing it just for you. And it's going to end in tears because they're not going to be better next year. The younger teams are getting better. The Warriors are not getting better. There was some sort of inflection, solar eclipse of the heart that happened in 22. That's it. People are talking about Chris Paul on that team. Did you know Chris Paul was on that team? There's an option for $30.8 million for next year. Does Chris Paul think that he should extend the lease on his place in San Fran? Chris, I got a suggestion for you. Nope. Give 30-day notice. They've got till June 28th to decide. They will not pick that up. I promise you that. Steve Kerr may have said the smartest thing of anybody. He said, this is life. This is how it works. You don't get to stay on top forever. I like that. Did I get Draymond Green wrong? Draymond Green is an extra year. I thought he and Curry were the same. Or was it Kerr? Was it Steve Kerr and Steph Curry are the same? And then Draymond has that 1 extra year. That'll be fun. Can you imagine Draymond in the final year of a deal? He's not exactly Udonis Haslem. Him in the final year of a deal without Kerr or Curry or Thompson. I'm sure that will go swimmingly inside the clubhouse. It'll be a refuge for teaching and patience. It's too bad when things end. All runs come to an end. People get sad when college ends or high school ends, or you're having a great moment, a great experience at work, a great work trip, or a great personal fun vacation, and it ends, and there's people who tend to cry, people who get upset, people who get angry or sad. I'm the opposite. When runs end, I look and I say, hey, all good runs come to an end. And when it's over, you have the perspective to look back and say, wow, that was a great run. And then start another run. I was so busy running a team trying to recapture runs, trying to make a new run from the old run, continuing the old run. You got to stop and then start a new run. The Golden State Warriors, if they're being run correctly, will end this run and start a new one. We'll wait to see. As a matter of fact, Coca, let's just do it. I'm going to give you a full wait to see. When we tell you something's going to happen, if it does, great. If not, fine. We'll revisit it. Wait to see. I wish we had like music that we could play. Is there any music we could do when we say wait to see? Where you'd play something that would be like revelatory. Or it could be mysterious. Like dun dun. I don't know, work on that. Maybe for episode 1035. The Warriors will not bring Chris Paul or Klay Thompson back. I'm risking getting that wait to see wrong because they could do a 2-year deal for Klay. And as Warriors fans, you should be livid. But we're going to go wait to see Chris Paul, Klay Thompson not back. Zion Williamson likely won't be back in order to try to save the Pelicans season. I was watching Lakers Pelicans. I watched the pregame with Charles Barkley, the FanDuel. I think they're FanDuel on TNT. I can't remember what they are. They're associated with the gambling company, either DraftKings, FanDuel, ESPN Bet, BetMGM. It's one of them. He got out there and said, I guarantee you, Pelicans. Charles Barkley. I told you the pick of the day was the Lakers. The Lakers beat the Pelicans. They held on. Final score doesn't necessarily reflect what happened. I think it was a 110-106 final. Lakers were up 18 in the second half. Pelicans came back to tie it. Little mea culpa here on a random Wednesday morning as I get ready to fly to Pittsburgh to do a live show tomorrow night. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, come to City Winery. We've got a live show, 7:30 p.m. tomorrow, April 18th in Pittsburgh. The mea culpa is this. I've been pretty down on Zion Williamson because he hasn't played much, gets injured all the time, not in shape. And I will tell you that while you think that we do a sports business podcast, which we do it every day, 8 a.m. live, 10 a.m. on the DraftKings Network. I don't think I watched a complete Pelicans game this year. And when I say complete, I saw them play. But last night I watched a complete game, minute 1, minute 48. I think Coke and I were on the phone for part of it, may have taken a break to watch some red zone baseball like at halftime, but I watched the whole game. Zion Williamson, we were talking, looked great. And then on the air, it said that he had lost 25 pounds since the in-season tourney. His ability to get to the rim, his points in the paint, his finishing acumen, he is good. I had to wait to see that I lost that he finished top 3 in the MVP one year when he had a great first half and then he got hurt. The problem with Zion is he keeps getting hurt. So the Pelicans are on their way coming back while all of you were buckled with the narrative that some team would not try to win that game. Please go listen to the show from yesterday where I explained why the Lakers will win that game and want to win that game. As a matter of fact, Darvin Ham, the coach, came out after the game and said, I heard about people thinking that we'd tank to not have to face the Nuggets. What are you, in an insane asylum? I felt the same way. It's absurd. You never leave it up to a game 7. If you can win now, you win now. Thank you, Jack McKeon, for teaching me that. When you can win now, you win now. So Zion's having an unbelievable game. He drives to the basket late in the fourth quarter, game tied. All of a sudden, Reggie Miller, in one of the few amazing bits of analyst work that he did last night, some of the stuff was absolute insane drivel, but other stuff was actually, hey, Zion looks hurt. And next thing we know, Zion's not in the game. Next thing we know, Zion's throwing a towel at the bench. And then the next thing we know, he's going to the locker room. When you leave the locker room, when you leave the bench in baseball, players leave the dugout all the time. It's just the pace of the game. You leave to go to the bathroom. You leave to go to your locker and go watch video, go check your phone. You go, you come back. We sometimes did team rules about, sometimes we would lock the clubhouse because too many players were going back in there. We locked the video room because too many guys were looking at video in between at bats, and it made us crazy. Basketball, you rarely see players leave the bench who don't have boiler problems. Other than that, if they're leaving the bench, it's bad. It means they're hurt. And Zion never came back. And we found out what happened because their coach told us, and he was great. We appreciated that. Came out after the game and said, hey, all I know is it's some sort of leg injury. I haven't spoken to him. I don't know why coaches lie about that. Do you know how a clubhouse works and a locker room works when a manager walks in or a coach comes in and your best player's hurt? Do you think the first thing that the manager does is go talk to the player? Yes. It's literally the first thing. Well, you know what? Not true. If I'm going to use literally, I better be right. First, they walk into their office and put down the pieces of paper they had, take their jacket off, take their hat off, if they're the manager, take their jacket off with the coach of the NBA team. Then you go speak to your best player. If it's a utility guy, 12th man, last man on the bench, utility infielder, the manager may meet the media first and then may jaunt into the food room and see if the hurt guy's there, maybe check out the training room. But your best player, Zion Williamson, it's not even a question. Of course you're going to. So the Pelicans have one more shot to make the playoffs. They will now play the Kings. Winner gets to play the Thunder. The Lakers get a chance to now play the Nuggets. And you'd think that that would mean they're going to get swept. 'Tis better to get swept in the first round than to not have played at all. The WNBA draft took place 2 nights ago and the numbers came out. We have to talk about this. What an unbelievable performance for the draft. We talked yesterday maybe about the red carpet. We didn't have the numbers yet. Can we please go into detail? While, of course, I'm going to be sad when I say this, and I'm not sad because it's women's sports. Don't get me wrong. I'm sad about anything that makes baseball look bad because I love the sport that loved me back so much. The MLB draft gets 744,000 people watching. Not bad in that it beats the NHL, but pretty bad in that the NBA gets about 3.7 million people. The WNBA draft gets, a couple $100,000. When Diana Taurasi got drafted back in 2004, they got $600,000. That was good. Last year, $572,000, not bad. Below baseball, below NHL, not bad at all. 572,000 people watching your draft, where 12 teams are drafting players. 2.446 million people. That's the number of people watching Caitlin Clark get drafted. Just take a minute and think to yourself what we are witnessing. We are witnessing the WNBA taking advantage of a comet, a flash, a moment of brilliance, and figuring out, now what do we do? How do we monetize this moment? Because lest you think the WNBA is not having a moment, you'd be wrong. Whether it's Clark and her uniforms that are selling, whether it's the 2.5 million people watching the draft, the only thing that is being focused on right now inside the halls of the WNBA is how do we take advantage monetarily of this to increase our league revenue, to increase the value of our teams. And I came up for free. They did not hire Samson and Nikola, but I came up with a few suggestions. And it's not the normal suggestions of put Caitlin Clark in every commercial, put the Indiana Fever on every national broadcast. The problem when you try to monetize one player when you're promoting a league is that you're one player short. Bird, Magic. Jordan, Pippen. Jordan, Stockton Malone. Jordan, Thomas. There was always someone that Jordan was trying to beat or trying to hold off. There was always someone who was, while Jordan was in so many commercials solo, there was always a two-pronged approach perfected by David Stern with Bird and Magic. The NBA has done it. Major League Baseball has failed to do it, but tried. Who are the faces of MLB? Is it Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, LA? Is it Judge and Stanton, all rise? Is it Judge and Rizzo? Is it Judge and Soto? Is it Judge and Tatis? The WNBA has to decide who they are going to make their number two. That's the first decision. It's Clark and. Next, you're going around to your corporate sponsors and you're explaining the rate card change. The rate card is what you choose when to charge a sponsor for an ad during the game, for on-court signage, for suites and tickets. There are many, many different parts of a deal with a national sponsor. That's a deal that's done on behalf of all teams. And then there's local sponsorships where Indiana Fever are going to have a great number of sponsorships because of all the excitement around her team. But having the Indiana Fever on national television 34 times, etc. I've got the WNBA getting together with their corporate sponsors and saying, listen, your deal runs out in 2 years. We're going to be like a landlord in New York City. If you sign up right now for an extra 3 years, we'll keep your rate at only a maximum increase of 20%. But if you do not renew right now, then you're subject to the new rates that we charge any new sponsor, and the WNBA is on a heater. So the amount of money that you pay to get the assets you get in return, that same amount of money will get you a fraction unless you sign up now. You see, in business, it's always easier to keep your customer than to get a new customer. And so when you're keeping your customer, you are willing to do things that you don't necessarily do to get a customer, because the customer that you get, if you discount tremendously your product, they're not used to paying full rack rate. If you give a break to an existing customer, they know it's a temporary break because they've been paying full rack rate as part of being your partner prior. So my business mind has always told me that when I'm keeping track of what I want to give to who, what the value is of what, I am putting a premium in the loyalty shown to me by existing companies. And I am, what's the word, Coca? This is show 1 of 5 today, and I can't find the word. When you charge someone more, gouge. Thank you, Coca. Nailed it. I have no problem gouging a new company if I'm the WNBA. Hey, I don't know where you've been. Now that Caitlin Clark's here, now you're deciding, all right, here's the rate. And the reason why I need to increase my sponsorship dollars is I am going around to all the teams in the WNBA, and I am monitoring, much like baseball does for its 30 teams, monitoring your ticket prices. Let's take not just Caitlin Clark, but let's take the non-Caitlin Clark games out for a walk. And let's see if we can bring value to those. Because the worst case scenario is that it's only Caitlin Clark, and that when she's not playing in your town, no one goes. When she is playing, everyone goes. She becomes event, almost circus-like television. And that may sound intriguing to the average fan, and you may think that that's beneficial to the league, but it's not. When you've got a one-off situation that, whether it ends in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever a career is, one-off situations do not increase the values of the teams. They do not have a meaningful increase to revenue. Therefore, you've got to have contingency plans. You've got to get deals done now. The WNBA needs to take care of its broadcast deal right now before people find out it could be a house of mirrors. I'm not saying it's going to be. I don't want to hear 32% of you tell me that I'm down on women's sports. Don't miss my point here. I couldn't be more excited about Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. I love watching things work out. But when you're running the league, you've got to think about when things don't work out. That's the value you bring to the C-suite. It's what I tell you about GMs. I don't need my GM to walk in my office and say, Ohtani would make us a better team. Really? Thank you. Appreciate that. That's real value-added stuff. Find me a number 5 starter. Caitlin Clark is going to have a level of success that I think is pretty impressive. If she does for the league what people think she will have an impact not only on the revenue, the valuations, but also on the union, on the collective bargaining. She will have an impact on the empowerment of players, maybe even on the pay of players. Remember, Caitlin Clark, as we discussed yesterday, people are up in arms. Joe Biden came out and said, this is outrageous. Women should be able to earn as much as the men. I totally get what you're saying, Joe, except your head's in the sand. Now, should Caitlin Clark be making more than 76 grand? Maybe. Does she have an opportunity to? Yes. Is it strange that Wemby is going to make 12 million as a rookie and Caitlin Clark 76 grand plus a few marketing dollars? No. The values are just different, and the salaries reflect the values. The WNBA has a weaker union, of course, than the NBA or MLB or the NFLPA. Women's sports is going, just women's sports tried to walk you through, and I want to just spend a minute explaining this to you. In the WNBA, players receive 50% of the league's incremental revenue. In the NBA, players receive 50% of all revenue. That means that the WNBA sets a revenue target, and the players only get a share if the league gets above that revenue target. And that's what they share. Does that remind you of anything? Just throwing it out there. I'll give you a minute to think. Does it remind you of your own company's profit sharing plan? Does it remind you of the bonus structure of any executive where you get a percentage of the upside? Only in sports like the NBA or MLB or NFL do players seem to get a percentage even when you don't hit your number. It makes perfect sense what the WNBA does, but people are crying inequality. They're crying foul. Why don't the players make 50% of all revenue from $1 incremental? They can fix it. They can budget so that they have no incremental revenue whatsoever. No, you can't. When you put together the league budget, you are taking the assumptions from each team. You're adding up broadcast revenue, national sponsorships, etc., and you come up with a number. How do you surpass that number? Caitlin Clark. A new TV deal. There are myriad ways to increase the bottom line revenue target. The CBA calls for the revenue target just to go up 20% every year. It's pretty good. Do you know of any business that has a 20% year-over-year increase every single year? I do not. Not common. Certainly not sustainable. So the WNBA is in this position where they need to take advantage from a league standpoint. The players need to take advantage from a union standpoint. You're reading about different rights and different things that the players want. You're reading about things that the owners want and that the commissioner wants, expansion, etc. The coolest thing when you own a company that is having a moment is you actually get to accomplish both. So we'll wait to see if that's what happens with the WNBA. And we don't have to wait much longer. I'm going to do a bonus wait to see here, Coca. Caitlin Clark's first game with the Fever on national TV. I think it's May 12th. I don't remember the exact day. Their training camp starts soon and the regular season starts soon. Their first nationally televised game is May 14th. What day of the week is that? Let me check that live. I'm live. I can take a minute. Coco always tells me I can breathe and looked and said May 14th is a Tuesday. 2 days earlier is May 12th, the Sunday night game. Here is my wait to see. Caitlin Clark's game on May 14th will have more viewers than the Sunday night baseball game on ESPN. May 12th, fewer numbers than May 14th. The WNBA will make MLB crazy as they get into a room and figure out how not to fall behind another league. I don't believe any game not with Caitlin Clark will outrate a baseball game, but we'll talk about that another time. Official wait to see, Coca. Caitlin Clark's first game on national TV on May 14th will outrate more viewers than ESPN's game on May 12th. Wait to see. All right, when we come back, it's Braves Mets, by the way. Thank you, Coca. Ooh. All right, hold on. I may need to change my call here. Braves Mets on Sunday, May 12th, getting fewer viewers than the Indiana Fever on Tuesday, May 14th. Oy, crikeys. We'll keep that as the wait to see. It's a bit risky, I would say. When we come back, we are going to talk about the Masters, which had the opposite kind of day as the WNBA. And we're going to review a movie that I got to totally by mistake. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson live, 8 to 8:50. We're here every day. DraftKings Network, 10 o'clock. Go to davidsamsonpodcast.com. Ask any questions you have. Send in emails. Got great emails from the people who went to the show in Nashville the other night, the day before yesterday. Off to Pittsburgh for a show tomorrow on the 18th. All the information's on the website, merch, etc. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Truly. This has been a busy month, as fans of Nothing Personal figured out, and we've got a bit of busyness left here since it's only the middle of the month. Still getting to a movie every day, but it's NHL playoffs starting, NBA playoffs, MLB season, WNBA season, and I'm on tour and trying to run a marathon in London. Something's got to give, Jack. I watched a movie. I think I'm going to review one of them on Levitard today, where I'll be live at 9:27 a.m. as part of the local hour today. There's this movie on Apple TV called Girls State. And there's a companion movie on Apple TV called Boy State. I wanted to start with Boy State right now. It's a 2020 movie I had never heard of. Girls State just came out, 2020. I don't know if you even have the poster for it, Coca, because it was from 2020 on it. That's it. Right over my other shoulder, right over my right shoulder. It's opposite the little screen I'm looking into. Did you know that they put boys all over the country as part of American Legion, that they go away for like a week of intense politic camp for kids who don't like sports, don't care about going to tennis camp or basketball camp or baseball camp or soccer camp? They want to go learn to be leaders. They go away and it's just boys. And the reason it's called boys is they're high school boys, every size, every color, from everywhere around the state of Texas, except they do it all over the country. One in Texas, one in Missouri, one in a state near you. And it's this whole program where they elect a governor, they elect a Supreme Court, they elect an attorney general amongst themselves. So they learn how elections work, they learn how to vote, they learn how to have a party chair and figure out how to do a platform. And this documentary follows several of the boys, one of whom's a conservative, one's a liberal. One doesn't know what he is, but wants power. One doesn't know what he is, but is scared of wanting anything. One thinks that he could be something, turns out he can be something else. One thinks he can't be anything, and turns out to be the thing. When you're in high school, you have no idea what you're going to be. What a great idea, though the program does feel a little culty, but what a great idea that we are trying to educate tomorrow's leaders. Small issue. 80 years in, hadn't heard of it. In the beginning of the documentary, they sort of give you a list of famous people who have done this Boys State retreat. Rush Limbaugh, Dick Cheney. Wait, is it all Republicans? No, I think Obama did it too. There are people, successful people in the political world who have gone through this program. I'm watching this documentary thinking to myself, would I have done that? Spoiler alert, totally. I loved going to sports camps. I loved going to my camp, Camp Interlaken. It's my favorite place on earth. But there would always have been time during the summer to add that as a week. Would have been fascinated to be a part of trying to figure out our system before you're of legal age to vote. If you get a chance, watch Boys State. Girls State was a bit different. We'll get to it on Lebitard later today. And if we don't get to the movie review, which sometimes we don't, then we'll review it on a future Nothing Personal. But they are brother-sister documentaries. Start with Boys State. I went the other way. I watched Girls State and then Boys State. It's way better to watch Boys State first. You know who wasn't watching anything? Maybe you were all watching a movie because you sure as heck fire weren't watching the Masters. That stuffy group of guys. The final round where Scottie Scheffler won by 4 strokes. Everyone was bored out of their gourd. You know what the total number was? Any idea? Down 20% from last year. Maybe around 9 million people. Quite disappointing. Can we talk about it for a minute if you don't mind? Thank you. Why aren't people watching? They're watching other stuff in record numbers. How do they choose? What would make you watch the WNBA draft but not the final round of the Masters? Oh, I hate golf. It's racist. It's stuffy. I hate golf. They're fighting PGA and live players. Do you actually think any of those things? What would have made you turn it on? Like a light switch. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was not in competition. Tiger Woods absolutely crapped the bed after making the cut. He was in the early pairing on the final day. He finished with a career worst, I don't know what he was, plus 15, plus 16. People don't care about Scottie Scheffler. They're not interested in live, PGA, and the fighting that's going on. Is there a better example of a league or of a sport that is being held up by one person? Now, you could come to me at Dustin Johnson. You could come to me at McIlroy. You could come to me at John Daly back in the day. Nicholas, Watson, Palmer. I'm going to come to you and say Tiger Woods was the Magic and Bird. Tiger Woods was the what Caitlin Clark wants to be. Tiger Woods was the Tom Brady. Tiger Woods was everything. Golf has to come to the very real epiphany that there's no more Tiger Woods. His injuries, his age, the days of him carrying a tournament are done. What do? You've got to start promoting other people. Got to figure out how to make it interesting. You've got to improve the TV product because it turns out the tradition, like any other, is a victim of 2024. It's a victim of people who are event-driven, star-driven, and moment-driven, not tradition-driven. No longer are people going to watch it because they have watched it. They have to be given a reason to watch it. Because of the different choices and the expanded choices of entertainment that we have today, it completely forces us to change the delivery of the product. Do you ever wonder why baseball or why basketball or why football is doing all these things, making these changes, a play-in tournament, an in-season tournament, international games, streaming games, 9:30 a.m. games, Christmas games, Friday games, Monday games, Wednesday games? Do you know why leagues are doing these things? Because they're trying to continue to capture the piece of pie they have, keeping their customers, and then figuring out ways to even grow the customer base. If you think the golf network, whether it's NBC, CBS, ESPN, I don't care who has rights to what, if you don't think they're sitting around and wondering what they're going to do about it in a post-Tiger Woods world, then you're just drinking some Kool-Aid. And so I've got the same suggestion for Jay Monahan and Greg Norman. And you need help, Greg, with Liv. No one's watching you, period. Here's my suggestion. Make a star. Name a league that created stars. Name one for me. I got one for you. How about F1? How about all the people who watched Drive to Survive because of the characters that were created, the stars that were made, and the impact that that's had on viewership around the world, on the value of the F1 property? Those of you who own stock in it, Liberty, congratulations. The value was created by character-driven star vehicles. And not one. Do you know what's not fun? When Max Verstappen wins every race. Do you know what is fun? When there can be characters at the top of the grid. That's why the WNBA has to create it. That's why golf has to create it. That's why MLB has to create it. The NBA is looking at a time when James and Curry are done and they start focusing on Victor. You have to go from one to the next. And in order to do it, wait for it, you have to be willing to end the run. You have to. The Masters run, the Tiger Woods run, it's over. Who's got next? We'll find out. Nothing personal pick of the day. We are 45-57. We got you 2 wins last night. We lost the Warriors over the Kings. We had the Lakers. Sorry, Barkley, you got that wrong. And then we had our Corbin bet. Are we undefeated in that Corbin bet? Coca, I can't remember what we are. We had the Dodgers money line over Corbin and the Nationals, and it won. Because of course it did. We'll keep riding Corbin. I mean, he's going to get released at some point, you think. All right, tonight we've got 2 play-in games in the NBA. Let's start with the Sixers Heat. People are really telling me, maybe because I Levitard in Miami and I lived in Miami and watched the Heat play. Maybe it's me saying, hey, come playoff time, the Heat win. The Heat are getting 5.5 points on the road in Philadelphia in a not must win. Meaning if they win, they're in as the number 7 seed. If they lose, they get to play the winner, host the winner of the Bulls-Hawks. Also played tonight. It's like the Lakers-Pelicans game from yesterday. That's what the Sixers Heat game is. Embiid is expected to play. Jimmy Butler will play. There's some history between those 2 teams. Sorry, Heat Nation. The Magic from last year, no mas. We're taking the Sixers 5.5 over the Heat. In case baseball is your thing and you want to get a baseball game, there's one game I'm focused on. The Diamondbacks have Fott going. Fott has an ERA that is quite inflated, although it's still early in April. And people are thinking, wow, is there some sort of regression here? There's something going on because the Diamondbacks, are only giving 125 to the Cubs. And Fott is nasty if you watched him during the playoffs, and he just hasn't pitched great. That ends today. Fott and the Diamondbacks over the Cubs. Sixers 5.5 over the Heat as the Heat go on to play the winner of Bulls-Hawks. Those are the nothing personal picks of the day. How are the Chicago White Sox doing, would you say? I would say that they're not doing well. We're going to do a whole segment. I don't know where, on a mailbag maybe on tomorrow's Nothing Personal. I want to do a whole segment. Coke and I prepared this whole thing about the White Sox on field and what was going on with their players, who's signed to what, and how absurd it is, how bad they are. There was a video posted on Twitter that I think I reposted, Coca, of their manager just speaking nonsense and not sounding very managerial. And I was thinking about on-field woes. But what attracted me to the White Sox today is an off-field situation. Jerry Reinsdorf, well-known friend of the show, loves our show. Gets people whispering in his ear about our show the way Jeter used to. God bless it. Hi, Jerry. Hope you're doing well. You're doubling down on something that's very interesting that I'd like to discuss. Do you remember when Jerry bought what is an RSN called Stadium? Well, guess what? I've got an update for you. The White Sox and the Bulls, owned by Reinsdorf, the Blackhawks, owned by the Wirtz family, are going to get together in the city of Chicago, and they're going to complete a deal where all of their games will be on Stadium starting this fall. Stadium is the platform owned by Reinsdorf. Basically, what Stadium is an RSN. Reinsdorf is starting his own RSN and has to find outlets for it. He has to find providers, networks, platforms to pay him, because otherwise he has no TV revenue for these teams. Now, wait a minute. They may charge you streaming on their app, $19.99 a month. Maybe they'll bundle the three teams together. You can get White Sox and the Bulls and the Blackhawks for $30 a month or $50 a month, whatever the number is. They got to figure out what they're going to do. Jerry Reinsdorf got wealthy by buying teams and by being a very smart businessman. I'm trying to understand the intelligence of an RSN network. We know that the economics of the RSN networks don't work anymore because you're not able to cut deals with the big cable companies on a per sub basis any longer. And what deals you are able to cut with these big cable companies are way reduced from what they used to be. Now, granted, you keep your own streaming rights and you try to exploit them, but we've learned, both here and on the sporting class, that that doesn't work either, because that doesn't replace the revenue that you lost on the cable side. So Jerry, at the tender age in his 80s, has this plan where they're going to figure out, do they go over the air? Do they cut little deals with cable companies? And all I keep thinking is, no matter how you slice it, it's like he's 15 years late. He's never 15 years late. He's trying to build a stadium for the White Sox, trying to get public money for it, trying to work with the Bears, which isn't going to happen. He's working with the Blackhawks to try to figure out TV, partnering with all the teams. Do you remember how many years ago the Knicks and Nets tried to partner together? 4, 8, 69. Do you remember how many years ago the Yankees and Nets tried to partner together? New York teams trying to figure it out. Mets, Yankees, maybe. Nah, they started their own things. Not like the Cubs and White Sox are working together. What Jerry is failing to realize that is going to impact his team, as you've already seen it impact the White Sox, in addition to some bad decisions, is that when you count on something to have been the way it was and it doesn't perform, you end up in a way worse situation because you budget for that thing that had been working to continue to work even at increasing rates. It's another example where a run comes to an end. And if you don't realize the run is over, you get left behind with years of mediocrity, years of underperformance, years of failed expectations. So my suggestion is this. When you read about the announcement about a multi-platform network, and you read what the White Sox, Bulls, and Blackhawks are trying to do, just look at it with one eye only, toward the quality on the field, and one eye toward the quality in the boardroom. Because what they're going to try to tell you is that putting all these teams together, putting them on the network, that it's just business. Good luck finding the games. It's nothing personal.